up.
Pictures up.
Pictures up. Let's roll sound. Rolling.
Rolling.
Sound speed.
Camera speed. Awesome. Take two.
And action.
Hi there, and welcome into Me Mean the Movies Open Dialogue. This is Thomas Manning, and the conversation I'm sharing with you today is with two really remarkable filmmakers, Brendan Bellomo and Slava Leontyev. They are the co-directors of the documentary The Porcelain War, which won the 2024 Sundance Grand Jury in the documentary category, and has also been shortlisted for the 2025 Academy Awards. And this film is really a tribute and just a testament to the power of art in the face of oppression, in the face of war, and just how sacred art is during the darkest of times. So I was really privileged to be able to share this conversation with Brendan and Slava and appreciate what they continue to do. And I encourage everyone out there to watch The Porcelain War, which is one of the best documentaries I've seen for 2024 and really one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time. So thank you all so much for watching and listening. Once again, speaking with Brendan Bellomo and Slava Leontiev about the Porcelain War. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Yeah, Brendan and Slava, it's great to be chatting with the two of you. Thanks for your time, and really honored to meet you two.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I'll get right into it. Definitely want to talk about constructing the opening sequence of this film, where you have this serene montage of what I imagine what felt like everyday life before the war. And then we have the hard cut to the war zone montage. Just very effective sequence. So I'm curious to hear about building that framework for the opening of the film and at what point you decided that that's how you wanted to approach that first sequence and open the film like that?
That's such a great question. And this sequence came about very, very naturally in a sense. So Slava and Andrei, this is their first time ever using a camera, but yet they are really very, very deeply inspired by nature. They're very, very curious, and their own work and Anya's paintings and the figurines are really draw a lot of visual inspiration and soulful inspiration from the areas around Kharkiv, which they love so much. So when they began to film, they started shooting this absolutely bucolic nature. And Andrei's understanding of where to put his canvas as an oil painter who had become our cinematographer just lent itself to him choosing these amazing vistas. And so the footage was so beautiful. And things from the very first roll of film ended up in that opening sequence. And at the same time, that next role that we got was destruction. It was how their lives were affected. It was this unimaginable contrast. And so there were these juxtaposition wasn't something that we imposed on the film. It was something that was inherent in their lives, something that they didn't want. This destruction was absolutely awful. It wasn't something that they wanted to focus on. Their focus was beauty. And yet they had to acknowledge that their lives were, so many things were caving in. And what ended up happening is when we began to edit, Slava and I were speaking about music. And I asked Slava, is there a band that you guys love? And he told me, Andrei, while he paints, listens to Daka Braka. And he played for me Vesna, the song that opens up the film. And it's like opening up a portal. It's like stepping into Ukraine. It's so specific. It honors the folklore of Ukrainian music and the style, but it's also really emotional, really universal. And it has these sounds of birds that they create vocally. And so there was this instant fusion of these two things. And so the rhythm of the sequence was conceived exactly in conjunction with that song. So there was no way to switch the music. They were one. And that really gave a sort of framework for the contrast that would continue throughout the film.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned Daka Braka there because I was going to ask more about having them creatively as this kind of just atmospheric voice throughout the film. Can you kind of expand a little bit more on what they brought creatively and just how that really constructed what the final product of what we feel emotionally?
Absolutely. So when we started to pair Daka Braka with the footage, there was a synergy. There was something, when the film is is a combination always of more than one thing. But I think when it becomes cinema is when they're greater than the sum of the parts, so to speak. There's a feeling that emerges that's not in one or the other, but together. And that started to occur. And so we began to cut other sequences, rough cuts of parts of the film and scenes to other Daka Braka songs. And I kept sharing them with our producers. Slava and I were, they were filming, we were working on different things, and we kept going and going. And all of a sudden we had the whole rough assembly to the films was one band. It was all Daka Braka. And it had something, you couldn't even put it into words, but it was deeply, deeply moving. And we were really nervous because we tried to reach out to them and they weren't responding. And we realized they were on tour. They were traveling the world. They were as artists creating music, doing concerts, and donating the proceeds of these to musicians who were fighting. And Paula and Aniela, two of our amazing producers, they were literally ready to go to their concert and hold up a sign, call us. And finally, they reached the manager of Daka Braka, and they got on a Zoom call, and she was crying. There had been shelling the night before, and she was looking at the footage. We sent her some things we were working on, and she was so moved. She felt we really want to support the band, really wants to support Porcelain War, and so they gave us their whole library, even unreleased music. And what ended up happening is the rhythm, the heartbeat of Porcelain War was in sync with Daka Braka. We cut to that, and so there was no way to replace it with any other score. It really, I think, gave an authenticity to it, and it was really inspiring us when we were cutting. So that was a key component of the story, and we felt it was very authentic.
Yeah, Slava, anything you want to add there about your experience with Daka Braka?
Daha Bracha, one of our favorite band. It was so natural for us to choose Daha Bracha, and Andrei, our cinematographer, he used Daha Bracha as background when he painted, and we were happy. We were happy when Brendan decided to use this music for us. It's really kind of personalization of Ukrainian spirit.
Yeah, and another visual element in the film that really sets it apart is the animation on the illustrations on the porcelain. And this, added such a unique layer to the doc, not only visually but emotionally as well. So I'm curious to hear about the origin of that creative choice and creating those animated sequences.
So I think Slava, you can speak to this
Well,
because it's
we
creation.
really need this animation. We really need animation the first, because animation gave us a language to tell about the terrors of war without showing them like news does. Animation gave us opportunity to tell about our peaceful past in Crimea, and to tell about, to show something about our dreams for the future. Animation was so important for us because it's based on our art, and our art is also important. It's important part of our resistance, because our identity and our culture is the main target of this invasion, main target of this aggression. And totalitarian government tried to take away our free choice, how to think and how to create our language. And since the start of Big War, so many our museums was destroyed, so many our universities was destroyed, and so many our artists was killed. And nobody can bring these people back to life. We must rebuild the future of our culture and our art. We must work instead of all of these people. It's our responsibility here and now.
It was really a fascinating process in this collaboration because, as Slava was saying, that the porcelain figurines on his paintings, it's her language, it's their language. and it's a more deep and rich expression than anything verbal. And we were beginning to collaborate on this animation, and I was, when we were working on this film together as co-directors, and Slava was very intrigued with this idea of a new dimension for art, which was time. He said, we've worked in composition, we've worked in lighting, and all of these things, so forth, but we've never used time before. And I said, no, Slava, I disagree. In Anya's paintings, you have the progression of seasons. You have past, present, future. You have characters that are moving, but it's a frozen cinema. And so in the animation, we can melt this and it can become alive. And this process was a very rich collaboration. We worked with a collective of animators in Poland called Blue Studios, based in Warsaw. And they felt a really strong kinship with Anya and Slava because of this, shared history of Russian oppression and cultural crossover. And so they worked for 1 year on these animations, and they studied 20 years of Anya's work. They looked at photographs of her style so they could really replicate it in their brushstrokes. And they worked by hand, making 7,000 frames, which became a moving version of Anya's stories. And those we mapped onto the glaze so that the porcelain itself could feel as if it was moving. And I think from a creative standpoint, the choice that became absolutely necessary was we could never leave Ukraine. It's not like you could cut to some 2D animated world and you go somewhere else, because then the audience would disengage. You're transported. But because they're unable to leave, they at that time they were there. We needed the audience to remain in the forest or in the rubble or in their workshop. In these creations, we made sure that they would remain right there with them in the landscape of Kharkiv.
And as far as the physical footage in this film, it's just stunning and very necessary. And it's about as subjective as you can get, whether it's the drone photography or the GoPro cameras. I've never witnessed something like that, but for the audience, it gives us this, remarkable point of view into what's happening on a daily basis and is extremely real life for millions of people. So I'm just curious from a filmmaking perspective, some of the unique challenges that capturing that footage brought to you both, what that asked of you as filmmakers, and what that means to have that footage reach people all around the world and have that story be told as significant as it is.
Yeah, that's a great question, Thomas. Slava, you can even speak about your perspective on the news and some of these initial beginnings.
So we were people on the ground. On the ground, we felt behind us our amazing team in Los Angeles, and it was our responsibility to look around attentively. And we did this because in the time of war, all is so fragile, and we filmed anything. We filmed every person or every part of nature or anything, like if it was last day of their existence. And we understood will be never too much focused on destruction or violence, because much more important to show what may be destroyed because this war. I never filmed in a real mission. I was too worried about maybe I will miss something, and because security of my friends, people of my unit, was depend of me. In real mission, I never was ready to film in mission, but all my friends support us. They support us a lot. I was able to work on Porcelain War when I was serving in Ukrainian army only because when I picked up my rifle, when I picked up my camera, someone picked up rifle in my place. And all these people, they were ready, just grab this body camera and film this amazing footage. And our pilots, they were happy between the battles, through Starlink, adjust with Brandon They were sitting in shelter, and they are just drawn for best kind of footage with Brendan, and it was the best kind of decompression for them.
It was, I mean, absolutely this act of journalistic bravery that they decided to share their reality. At the beginning of the filming process, Slava really talked about this notion that it was very valuable that many Western journalists were sharing what was happening in Ukraine, but this was a view from the outside, and he really wanted to share this emotional truth, a personal set of stories of everyday people that were in the midst of this conflict. And so the idea became to empower them to do that. And we ended up actually sending 15 cameras into Ukraine, and they went by way of a network of volunteers who were bringing medical and military aid through essentially a paramilitary supply chain that they arranged themselves. And it was actually a makeup artist from New Jersey who would pack between 50 and 60 duffel bags of, I mean, you couldn't even walk in her apartment, of aid and bring it through Poland, drive it into Ukraine. And that's how the cameras landed in their hands. And they captured over 500 hours of footage, which was absolutely remarkable. And I think a viewpoint that really enabled people around the world to understand this conflict from the point of view of their eyes, to be able to hopefully step into their shoes. And for the beginning of this process, I really became staunchly interested in this notion of delabeling. When you look at something through the news, often you'll see this is a refugee, this is a soldier, and you put them in a box. And I really hoped that we could avoid altogether that inadvertent dehumanization and instead really shine a light on the humanity that was coming out, that was this refusal from the Ukrainians to just be afraid, to succumb to this absolutely horrible situation, and instead to continue living, to be giving, to be hopeful, to be protective of their communities, to be creative. And I really hope that, audiences around the world see, while this is a story that occurs within the borders of Ukraine, it's about all of us. It affects all of us. It's the largest conflict in Europe since World War II. This is a democratic, sovereign nation that was unprovokedly attacked. And it really affects all of us around the world because democracy is at risk now more than ever. And to see that it is possible that stories can shine a light on how we can do something about that, and how art matters in that time to defend our identity, our uniqueness, our culture.
Yeah, well, I know it's been an incredible year for the two of you, coming up on a year since Sundance and winning the grand jury prize there, and your film is reaching millions of people, and obviously shortlisted for the Oscars. So congrats to the two of you, and thank you for the work that you've done, and thank you for your film. Very glad that I got a chance to see it, and honored to have the chance to share this conversation with the two of you. And I really appreciate your time, and yeah, really appreciate everything that you both do.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for helping us share the story.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I hope you all have a great evening, and hopefully we share more conversations in the future.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Okay, pictures up.
Pictures up.
Pictures up. Let's roll sound. Rolling.
Rolling.
Sound speed.
Camera speed. Awesome. Take two.
And action.